Okay, so now the second half of our notes here. Our first one says that we need to go from decimal to fraction. So we have about 2 steps, maybe 3 with this. Number 1, we're going to read the decimal accurately using the place value. The way that you've been taught to read them. And then number 2, we're going to write what we read. So we're going to read it, write it, read it, write it. So it would be read it, then write it. Okay. And 3, if we need to, we'll reduce. So for instance, if I take the decimal let's see, 35, I read that as 35 hundredths. I read it. So if I were going to write 35 hundredths, that would look like 35 over 100. And since both of these can be divided by 5, I'm going to do that. So 35 divided by 5, we know that's 7. And 100 divided by 5, we know that's 20. So that reduces to 7/20ths. All right, so the decimal 35 hundredths as a fraction is 35 over 100. And again, so we'll read it and we'll just write down what we read. If we read it accurately, the way that we learned decimals properly should be read. Okay, now percent to fraction. So we start with a percent. We're going to go to a fraction. This one's kind of nice because any percent, let's say we have 33%, is always out of 100. That's what the percent sign means. It means out of 100. And so we just can put that right over 100, 33 over 100, and then reduce if we need to. So the steps here would be put your percent over 100, and then 2 would be to reduce if possible. In this case, we can't reduce. All right, and then finally, to go from a percent to a decimal, you may be thinking, well, I'm just going to do the opposite of what I did over here because this was decimal to percent, and this is the opposite of that. Sure enough, we're just going to take our percent, which let's say it's 33% again. We know that the decimal point in any number is always after the last number if it wasn't written, and we're going to shift that decimal point 2 places to the left instead of to the right. And so this would equal 0.33 as a decimal, 33 hundredths. So the steps for that were 1, move decimal 2 places left this time. So we're doing the opposite. And then 2, we're going to drop the percent sign. All right, so that's how to convert between fractions, decimals, and percents mathematically. We'll practice more with this when you come to class. Make sure you have your notes.